SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. They are staggering figures. Family businesses make up about 70% of Australian enterprises and employ about half of the workforce, but it seems they're not getting the recognition they deserve. Catherine Sayer, the CEO of Family Business Australia, says the upcoming federal election is an excellent opportunity to increase the sector's profile. And as she tells Jeff Waters, that includes a seat at the table in federal cabinet.
People get really surprised when we use these statistics, but we understand that 70% of Australian businesses are family businesses in Australia and 75% in New Zealand. So if you think about that number, it's really significant. So we also believe that 50% of the workforce is employed by the family business sector. So they're two stats that they make people's eyes bulge when we say that, because that's a really significant part of our economy. So if we take that and then we overlay that with the fact that family businesses are small, medium and large, people would start to walk down the street and almost everywhere they turn they can see a family business. And because it's all sectors as well, whether it's in professional services, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's the corner shop even, restaurants and hospitality and or construction is huge. So, there's lots of family businesses are really literally everywhere.
Well, there's a federal election coming up. It sounds like you have quite a great deal of leverage there.
Well, it's really interesting because I've only been in this role since August 23. And when I started, I said, who do we engage with in government? And we really weren't doing much in the advocacy space. And I think it's really important to talk to government at all levels, local, state and federal, so they then understand the significance of the sector and start to recognise it. So we've had a bit of a plan, and I'll go through that in a minute, but just by way of background, in South Australia in the last state election, Minister Andrea Michaels became the Minister for Small and Family Business. Now that was the first time that's actually happened in Australia where there's actually been family in the name, as far as I'm aware. More recently in the Queensland election, there is also now a Minister for Small and Family Business, which is really fantastic. So what that's done is given us some real leverage to say, for example, with the upcoming federal election, that we really would like to see a minister for, and it naturally sits in small, even though we are fighting that whole stereotype, but a minister for small and family business, because what that then does is it elevates the perspective and the understanding of family businesses if you've got that in a portfolio. So that's one of the things that we're really pushing for. The other thing that's really interesting is there was a Senate report done in 2013 where there was this thing about collecting data about family businesses and it stalled. And here we are 11, 12 years later, and we're saying we really want to revisit that because it's really interesting. Politicians will always ask for statistics. And so we don't really have a lot of statistics around family businesses because they're not collected in the census or by other mechanisms in government. So that's something else that we're going to be asking for because, again, if you've got the data, you can inform policy and policy decision making, and it becomes more relevant that we have a seat at the table because we are advocating for family businesses. And that's just really important to have the data to then talk about policy and then avoid some negative unintended consequences. So that all sort of ties in together. There's also the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman, and Bruce Bilson is the Ombudsman currently. He does a great job.
A good friend of this program.
Does a great job. Bruce really does. I've had conversations with him and said, why is your act only specifically referring to small businesses as family businesses? It's very defined. And so I've said to him, I'd really like to advocate that your definition for family actually is legitimately all family. And Bruce was very happy for me to advocate that. So that's, again, another piece that we're saying to the politicians, please expand that definition so that we can actually really effectively work under that family business banner, not just being confined to small business. So there's a few things we're asking for and none of it's money.
Yes, I was about to say, it's all big brushstrokes sort of stuff and inclusion and That's all terrific. But at the moment, of course, family businesses, like any other businesses, are going to be suffering from financial stress, from new regulation that's recently come in. What would you be doing in that space?
So I think that's when we start to align ourselves with other organisations, because if you're talking about some of the industrial relations laws or some of the other laws that have come in that have an impact on, increasing red tape, bureaucracy, compliance, etc., we don't need to advocate independently of the general business sector, because in actual fact, it's all businesses that are affected. So we don't necessarily take broad business issues on our own. We partner with COSBOA, we partner with other associations, other chambers, etc. So we have a collective voice. Where we are more on our own is when there are some discrete family business specific issues, and we're very happy to focus on them.
And have any of those emerged for this election?
In terms of family business issues?
Yes.
Yeah, look, I think our first step is to engage effectively with government. And then the next step is to talk about things like capital gains tax, for example. So if you're in a multi-generational business, you go from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next, but you're subject to capital gains when that happens. And it just seems a bit incongruous for family businesses when it stays within the family for that tax to be paid. Now, we haven't even had that conversation with the government yet. We'd like to sit at the table to then be able to have that conversation. But it's a good example of impacts on family businesses where you want to see multi-generational businesses succeed. And that's one way that, government can assist family businesses.
Give us some feedback on this government as we're going into an election. How have you been received by the Albanese Labor government?
Yeah, look, we're really only dipping our toe in the water now. I've only been in this role for just over 12 months. So our advocacy piece is really only just starting. So, we really don't have deep connections with either side of politics, to be honest, currently. So we are building that. And this is why that election platform of the 4 things we're looking for initially will be our start of our engagement to be able to develop relationships. And most importantly, break down some of those stereotypes that exist about what family businesses are, even if they register in the politicians' mindsets. So we've actually got work to do to talk to all sides of politics to really raise the profile of family businesses for them to recognise how significant they are.
Extraordinary that they don't recognise them, considering they're more than 70% of businesses.
Well, I don't know that the sector has done all that well in advocating the message either. So I think we've got a real responsibility, and I myself in particular, to really raise the profile so that family businesses are celebrated and well recognised.
That's Family Business Australia CEO Catherine Sayer. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Producers are Nick Schildberger, Jeff Waters and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week.